Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
I just had the most wonderful day of interviews today.
Oh my gosh, me too.
So we currently have been interviewing people for our upcoming life consulting masterclass that is happening in the fall here.
It's a year-long intensive, either an inner healing intensive or learning how to be a life consultant intensive. People take it for different reasons, but it's been beautiful hearing people's life stories and their journeys of healing and wholeness. I love watching it. We had somebody who's thinking about moving to America just so that they can be in a better time zone for the masterclass, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I was pretty hit by that. But what's been really cool, we've already filled a third of the seats. Yeah. So, which I'm like, the final time to sign up is September 1st. So it's like filling up super fast.
Yep.
But as I'm doing it, I'm getting to hear like some of the most incredible stories of people like overcoming some very big difficulties and pain. And I just can't help but think like there's such a tenacity in the human spirit to live, to overcome, to find their way towards redemption and restoration.
Yeah.
And so it's been one of those hope-giving things, just getting to do that and bonding. Like I keep bonding to people as I'm reading their stories and getting involved.
I love it. It's so much fun. I love our class this year. I've bonded to so many of the people and I feel so proud
feels like extended family.
What they've learned, and it feels beautiful.
So
I never want them to graduate. That's how I feel. I want to keep them forever. Anywhere.
We're locking you up in our little cult basement.
Your laugh sounded so cult-like. What was that? That was so dark. Where did that come from? I'm actually literally concerned now.
Deep within me.
Oh my gosh. We all have to quit the cult now. The laugh did it.
Anyways, with all that said, right now, if you have been considering the potential of partaking in that, just email us at lfa@stumballconsulting.com to get more information about the Life Consulting Masterclass. And our assistant, Nicole, will get back with you.
Yeah, a lot of people, have seen our master consultants and their lives have been transformed. And we want to create an army full of people that can help people get wholeness.
An army of emotional warriors.
Yes.
So with that said, we got some super duper fun here today.
Some super duper fun here
we're
today.
We're gonna have a 2-part podcast. The first is gonna be a build up. It's gonna be like the foreplay to
be a big tease.
to the sex conversation we're gonna have in the second episode. Right, guys?
Right. Yeah. Totally, guys.
Sure.
Are
we talking about?
I was just saying
What did
that
I
this is
sign
the
up for
foreplay
here?
episode. You didn't know what you were signing up for, did you?
Oh gosh, here we go again.
Well,
Here we
for
go.
those of you who don't
Pietze
know,
and Jonny's pathway to mind-blowing sex.
That's the prelude to.
So I'm not going to tell my parents to listen to the next one.
You're gonna want
Pietze's
or
parents.
my dad who listens regularly. Don't listen, Dad.
that's
Sign off
funny.
now.
Pietze and Jonny, for those of you who don't know, Pietze is my best friend. Jonny is her husband. They've been married for 15 years. And they went through a pretty radical transformation in their lives. Well, they both have gone through a radical transformation in their lives. And we've had them on the podcast before talking about different parts of the podcast. We had them on last year because me and Pietze created a course called The Pathway to Freedom. And it is, about discovering how your emotions are trying to heal you, not destroy your life. If you
not destroy your life, that's key.
Feels like it though, doesn't it?
If you know what your emotions, like what the role is in your life, and you can actually work with them, not against them, so much of your life the chaos will slow down.
Oh, yeah. And we really believe that emotions are actually some of our greatest tools to healing, you know, and learning how to not just work through your emotions, but work with your emotions is so life-changing.
Yeah. So we created a course, and in the process of that, Jonny had to, didn't have to, but he volunteered to edit it.
Yeah.
He edited the video.
Hours and hours and days and days and weeks and months.
It was Abby and I's secret scheme, actually.
I wish that was a scheme. I would take credit for that.
That would have been very, very
manipulative. Hey, whatever gets the job done,
And
ladies, am I
brilliant.
right? And brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes. But so do you guys just want to give a quick summary to catch you up, and then share what's happening now with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I will chime in. So obviously, like, I've had a huge transformation through just the concepts. Obviously, I live with Pietze. So as she started like thinking through some of this stuff initially, that started my wheels turning. And then they roped me into filming the course. So I had to sit behind the camera the whole time. And then editing. It's been a whole transformation journey for me. Because I basically took the course. I took the course like 6 times. You know?
Johnny knows the content better than anyone on this planet.
Even the people who
probably
made
does
it.
it better than anyone on this planet.
Totally.
Yeah.
He's like, remember that quote you made? And me and Pietze are like,
No.
He'll
tell me things. He's like, yeah, then you said this. And I was like, I said that? That is powerful. Wow, I like me. I'm amazing. I asked him, I was like, when you were watching me, like, did you just love me? Like, as you were watching me, like, were you just like in awe of me? He's like, yeah, no, actually, I was like hating my life because I had to listen to you and Abby talk for 100 hours.
That's funny.
But that whole process led into a huge journey that completely transformed our marriage. And I mean, to the point where even like now, and Abby and I were talking about this yesterday, like I'm doing life consulting now. And 2 or 3 years ago, neither one of you guys would have, I didn't even like emotional health prior to this. I thought it was dumb.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd say I could honestly say probably a brick had more emotional intelligence than you.
Oh, it was bad. He
wasn't just dead to emotions. He avoided any kind of any emotions at all costs.
But this is the thing. I try to tell people this all the time. In our life consulting school, we're like, we don't want to teach you concepts. If you go through the transformation process yourself, you will get other people through that process. And that's what happened with you is you listened to it over and over and over again and then had to live it out and put it into practice and practice and practice and practice. And then you became this whole other person. And now the clients who are meeting with you are having incredible breakthroughs in their life because you actually have this key and pathway and authority from walking through this.
Totally. And it's been, I thought we could give just a quick recap for those who didn't listen to our 25-part series from last summer.
At this time.
It's worth listening to, though.
But just to give context to like why it's so crazy that this journey has affected me the way it is, you have to understand like how dead to myself I completely was. And so like Pietze and I met, I was 17, she was 19, and it was kind of a
whirlwind.
It was a whirlwind love.
Romance.
Very like just absolutely caught up in each other, you know? And then Pietze dumped me while we were on a family vacation at Disneyland, which now, having taken Pathways, I recognize really, really messed up every decision I made in regards to her emotions from that point moving forward.
Totally.
Right.
But, you know, then we got back together, got married really young. I was 18, she was 21. And immediately in that season, her whole life fell apart. And then we just kind of unraveled. We moved to a completely different part of the country where she didn't have any community and I had very little. And then she started the grieving process of her whole life falling apart. And I had no idea how to love somebody with emotions.
Yeah. That's very real for a lot of people.
Let alone someone who was in literal trauma.
Yes. And
a state of trauma.
Any emotions that I had ever been around, I acted out of what had been modeled to me as a kid, which is just like, this is scary. Just try to get through it as quickly as possible. Try to like avoid it if you can. Try to, all of those things. And so, and I had never had another girlfriend, so I had never even been in conflict in a relational context. So Pietze's over here completely falling apart, and I just
completely welled up.
I left.
Freeze. You left the building.
Emotionally.
You were gone.
Yeah.
I abandoned her emotionally.
Yeah, because you had no idea what to do. I think your heart was never to purposely do that. It's just, if you are facing a shitstorm and you're like, got nothing, you're like, I'm going to run and hide from this.
Yeah, and it's common. It's not like, I see it across the board. People feel so ill-equipped and they just go...
to deal with emotions.
Yeah, I'm just going to bury myself in work. I'm going to bury myself in addictions, whatever it is. I'm just going to bury myself because it feels very hopeless. When you don't have tools, you feel very powerless.
Yeah. And I mean, the sad thing is that the more he shut down, it triggered, I had already had like all of my world blow up and lost tons of friends, but it triggered such deep abandonment in me that really set the trajectory for our relationship in a lot of ways. And we had no idea. We had no idea at the time.
Well, we were so young. We had there was no way we could have known.
Yeah.
Like, I was 19, you were 21.
Right.
And we were dealing with things that were so big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so we
impossible.
kind of struggled along for a long time.
Yeah.
But did okay.
Yeah, we did okay.
And considering we did okay.
We did okay. And I was touring with a band. And obviously, as most people do when they tour with bands, they're gone all the time and they don't make a lot of money. We had a kid. And that obviously just made things way harder with me being gone 200 days a year and not really being able to pay the bills. So then Pietze's having to work and she's got a kid and things just really were unraveling.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, then Pietze kind of came to a point where she just couldn't do it anymore. Me being gone. And so that was a huge thing that I had to grieve, but I never grieved it. I never took the time. I just walled up even more and said, okay, well, I just have to deal with this. And so then coming off of that, it came out that I had been lying to her about looking at porn for about 2 years. And I had a drinking problem where I was just drinking all the time to cope, obviously because I was in really huge pain and really lost, But the funny thing is, and this has been really hard for me to look at, is that as I left the band, got a job that made good money, was really supportive with our daughter and, all of those things. At the same time, even though I was doing all the right things, our relationship got substantially worse. And it kept getting our connection, our connection got worse and worse and worse because I was becoming more and more disconnected because I hadn't grieved the band.
And you couldn't sit with yourself and your pain about it. And you certainly couldn't sit with me in my pain about it. And I couldn't sit with it.
I had to, my response was, I fixed the problem. Can we please just move on?
I fixed the problem.
You should be happy now because I'm doing all the things you want me to do.
Right.
And now I actually resent you because you're not
and
happy.
I'm miserable.
Because I'm doing all the things I thought you wanted to be happy. And here's the truth. Every married couple, every unhappy person in a marriage or relationship wants connection. Connection is the lifeblood of a relationship. If the relationship isn't working, there's a connection issue. If someone's unsatisfied, there's a connection issue. But we often go to the external things like you did, Jonny, which is do all of the right things. And then, I said, resent her because she's just never happy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think, one thing to note in that is in the season 6 months after we had gotten married where things were really falling apart, one thing that we've identified really recently is from that point until the last season, like just until this season that we're in now, we were never safe with each other. Like there was never a feel, like I didn't feel safe with her and she didn't feel safe with me. So even when I left the band and made the situation better, like we just were not safe. I was not a safe person for her and she was not a safe person for me.
Right. So almost it's like you guys rectified the disconnection as far as time and proximity
and money and help with the kids and all that.
But you still didn't rectify the problem as far as the safety and
the core issue,
the core issue of pain and things like that. So it's like, well, we adjusted externally.
Yeah. And I think it's so easy to do that. I think it's so easy to make an emotional issue become about if we just fix the circumstances, if we just do one more, if we just get this. And it really left us in chaos constantly, you know? So we were just running rampant in chaos and in stress cycles.
Well, and when you don't feel safe, you're using your protectors.
Yeah.
So if you don't feel safe, whatever it is that protects you, and protectors, bless them. We think like they feel
bless their little hearts.
They feel like they're going to help us, but they destroy our lives.
Yes, they destroy our lives, and they destroy our lives.
And we need to learn different ways of showing up than what our protectors often naturally say for us to do.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that process, at that same time as all of this was happening, our daughter was diagnosed with autism, which added a whole another component. And once again, Pietze completely grieved that, was in bed for days, was, you know, like she did it all right at the front. And I didn't feel a single emotion, you know, just like I always do. So it was just another problem to solve, another thing to carry, you know? And so then we got pregnant again and had a beautiful baby boy and moved home to Colorado, and business and life and financial issues. And we reached a point, we were living in this little condo and we were like barely making ends meet, you know, month to month. And I was working probably 80 to 100 hours a week, maybe something like that. Just constantly.
Our expenses, we just hit so many huge expenses right on this big cross-country move. It was just, we could not get our head above water.
A bunch of really traumatic situations, a really traumatic situation with my video production business. Our daughter, you know, was choking and we had to take her to the emergency room. All the things, you know. And at the same time, there was this feeling of hopelessness, even about being able to purchase a house and get out of this tiny little dark condo, you know? So it was a really, really hopeless season. And that is the season out of which Pietze came to the revelation that led to some of the development of what became Pathways, you know? And I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that was really the start of where things started to turn around, is because I think, you know, I just realized I'm like, if we can't change any of these circumstances, the only thing that we can change is us.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, but like we've got to figure out a way to make it through this.
To survive.
You know,
because we had kept changing circumstances. Like, if we move home, maybe things will get better.
This, if we do that,
it'll get better. If I quit the band.
And so I tell the story all the time, but I called Abby. I was like, tell me everything you know about triggers. I started doing tons of research, started really going after, okay, what's emotional hijacking? How do you work through emotional pain, triggers, all that kind of stuff? And it wasn't like life transforming right away, but it was like, it gave us this roadmap suddenly where life felt like chaos. It was like a first step, like someone just saying, the roadmap might not be easy, but at least here's a roadmap.
There's something to reference.
There's something. Yeah, it really was like...
Just to be clear, it wasn't a light bulb moment for me. It was just another thing that Pietze wanted to make me change. in this season. That light bulb came much later. Just want to be very clear on that.
Yes. And so but it was really helpful. And it really did help us to like survive.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started really getting into it, started teaching it, and really, oh my gosh, this stuff, Abby and I started really developing it. Wow, this is really powerful. Mm-hmm. And then we recorded the course. Jonny had to edit the course. And I would say in that season of editing the course, he was watching it over and over again. And it was like things just began to click for him.
Yeah, you really can brainwash yourself into health. I mean, like you do need some skills, but like I can't tell you how many things in my life I changed from listening to content
over and over.
I remember buying a CD series when I was like 20 from somebody, and it was more money than I'd ever spent on something like that. And I listened to those audio teachings over and over and over and over and over again. And now my life is the belief systems from that CD series.
Right.
Like it transforms you. Yep. Everything that has transformed me, I listened to over and over and over again, and also often had to pay a price for it. But well, I'm just saying, like, that's how it worked for my brain.
Totally. And it was so powerful, like him just repetitively listening to it.
Well, and I would say one of the earliest changes, and this is very simple, but it actually is powerful, is shared language.
Yeah, that's such a big deal.
Because I had been listening to it so much, so I know what a trigger is. I know that when I'm feeling this way, I'm probably feeling triggered. I know that it's probably tied to something that doesn't have to do with the situation. Like some of those things. And I hadn't actually really even fully gone on the journey. That came over time where I could actually connect to emotion, to real like grief over my daughter's autism or different things, That wasn't even there. But even just the shared language started to create a little bit of a bridge where we could talk through arguments and know where we were at.
I'll say this too. One of the common feedbacks that I get from people who participate, whether it's in the Connected Life, the Compassion Project, LFA, the Pathway to Freedom, any of the content that we've created, it consistently comes back to, we got this in our family and we started to get the same language. And communication barriers are the biggest, one of the biggest hurdles to me to all healing inside of relationships, because oftentimes people are having two entirely different conversations. But when you start creating a culture that really understands like the language, then when you say like, I'm feeling triggered, and everyone's like, I know exactly what that is. And you're probably going through this, because we all have, even if we don't haven't fully processed and healed things, we at least have a concept and an understanding. And in that relating, then we can begin to build bridges towards healing and processing with each other.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I've recognized in having common language is it actually makes communication way less threatening.
Completely. Yeah.
Because there's a shared reality of what that word means. So when Jonny says something like, hey, I'm feeling, this, and we both have that same language, I immediately can right away tune into, he's not trying to attack me. He's trying to get connection with me. It just really that is part of what is so transforming about it, you know?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And so from there, as Pathway, I was done editing Pathways. I went on to my next 80-hour-a-week job, whatever it was. And, I started to hit, it's funny because the information was in there, but I hadn't actually healed. And I started to hit this very midlife crisis sort of area. And it's funny because at the time I was probably 32 or something, so I guess I'm dying at 64. But I hit this area where it's almost like the pain that I'd been holding inside of me had escalated to the point where I could not go forward without letting myself feel it, Right. And so having gone through all of the Pathways stuff, we started having conversations, and I just broke. I don't know if you remember that, but just broke, like where I would just weep about things, weep about Yana, weep about the band, or, you know, and
you being able to connect to yourself is what really ultimately allowed us to be able to connect to each other.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is,
again, and find each other again.
Yes.
But it meant you having to connect to yourself.
Yes.
You having to get safe within yourself.
And the funny thing is that I had lost myself. Like I had lost my humanity because I was so afraid of feeling any pain.
Right. When you say you lost your humanity, it's like, oh, I actually became almost robotic in the way that I approach life. Like I'm here, but I'm not actually connected to the things that make me human.
Well, yeah. Like I always compare it to one of the bad guys from like one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, who's like he doesn't enjoy the taste of drink or the taste of food, or like he has it but he can't even taste, he can't even enjoy it. And I remember times,
great analogy,
I literally remember times where Pietze would push me like, you need to go do the things that you know, like you love to do, go sit at a coffee shop and read. And I would try it and hate it. Like things that 5 years, 6 years previously I would have loved and would have filled me up. But it's because I had literally like lost myself. So as we're going on this journey and I start breaking, it's so painful. And yet like I started to feel like a human again. I started to feel alive again, you know? And so I think that there was, I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but like I feel like I am so much softer than I was today.
I mean,
like even towards our kids,
say softer,
even towards
more,
Moses,
more gentle, more patient, more kind,
more happy.
Yeah.
I enjoy things, you know? And so that's kind of like the recap of how things got to the point of once Pathways was released and, you know, all of that with my journey. But it's been interesting because
and if you want details about like how us actually healing that pain and going on that journey, that's what last summer's
there's 6 or 7 sessions that you can get all of the details. Also, the reason that I had to do the recap is because Pietze would have made that like 6 hours
20
long.
hours. Yes, 100% she would have.
I was like,
thank God he took that over.
Thank God. Now I know how y'all feel about me. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Go ahead.
So
little dose of honesty there, Pietze.
I can take it.
So the interesting thing over the last 12 months is we are getting to places emotionally on a connected level as a couple that are progressively over time getting better. You know what I mean? Like as we continue through these concepts and as we continue on the journey, progressively we're getting to deeper and deeper and deeper spots emotionally with each other, you know? And so, you know, last fall, I was still just really struggling with like midlife crisis feelings. And
can you describe that a little bit so people who are listening can understand?
What is the point of my life?
Is
this all I've accomplished by now? Is this all it will ever be? Like, is my life going to mean anything? You know, what's the point? Like, why do I even try so hard? You know, those kind of feelings. And then I started getting a little safer. I started feeling a little more balanced. And I had this idea that I was going to give Pietze a present for Christmas where I was going to digitize all of her family's VHS videos, which was like 4 buckets full. You know,
I thought you were going to say jump out of a cake naked. And I was like,
there's that too.
That sounds
That's Valentine's Day. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds like
get your holidays straight here. So I go through this whole thing. I buy a million things off of eBay and different things to do this. And I start this process, but I'm having to watch so many of her home videos for when she was really little. and watching her be so soft and just like this innocent little girl. And then watching like as she goes through teenage years and all of a sudden she shuts off and you can tell she's just struggling so hard. And seeing kind of the good and the bad of what her childhood was and the struggles. And then, you know, seeing even, it's funny because this is how long we've been married. On the videotapes, on these VHS tapes, all of a sudden I come into the picture because that's when we met, and seeing myself, because the thing is, I don't have home videos. We didn't have a video camera, I don't think.
Me neither.
So seeing myself as this 17-year-old kid who just thought that the world was his oyster, like he could accomplish anything he wanted to, and just so in love with Pietze and just full of life. You know, and watching that through, basically the VHS tapes ended about a year after our marriage or our wedding, I guess I should say. And it messed me up, like in the best way.
Why? How so?
Because I saw who we really were before the pain of the world got
all
in.
of the pain for both of you, before you put your protectors on, before you learned how to survive, who you were.
I could see the love we had for each other before, you know, even that, like seeing our early like dating and times together. I'm like, I can see us again in that.
It's interesting because...
Are you having emotion over there?
It's just, I've never heard him really like talk about this before. Wow. So I'm just like taking
I gave a little speech at Family Christmas when I gave the digitized videos to everybody, but it wasn't this in depth. So
yeah. I didn't know the part about me. I knew the part about my parents. And I don't know. I think it's a really special thing to have someone witness your life and see you and be moved by that. Like that just feels really impactful that like you would do that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so much of what this journey is though, you know, is getting back to a place where we can actually see each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the real us, like where you can see the little boy in me that just wants to make a difference in this world and wants to be a good dad and, you know, all of those, wants to love the Lord.
Yeah.
And I can see that in you too, you know?
Yeah.
But it's so hard because we get stuck on top level stuff.
Yeah.
Like me versus you and who's the bad guy and all of that stuff. And we don't actually see who we really are.
Yeah. Pain really overshadows like what's actually there, you know?
I think that is such what you're saying. It's such a common thing for so many people, both in relationship and just in life in general. A lot of people come to me and they talk about my best years. And my best years were always all the way back here in this space when they were younger, before life happened. And somehow it's like they realize I lost myself somewhere along the way. I got buried. I buried myself. I'm somewhere I died, and I'm trying to resurrect something inside of me, but I don't know how to resurrect that thing, and I'm not quite sure what that thing is. I don't have vision for it. Yeah. But I know that it's somehow I have more joy or pleasure or fondness for this area all the way back here in this time period. And what you're really saying is like, even watching the videos, you're like, oh, I got to take a trip back in history. And there's like this, like, oh yeah, that's who I am. That's what would make that time so wonderful. It's because I was connected to myself outside of trauma and pain that had suddenly hit my life. And what does it look like? Are we forever disconnected from that? Or can we actually have that life here and now where all of a sudden we unburden ourselves from the pain and the trauma and the tragedies that life has brought. And we unburden ourselves from the rules and the expectations that we put on our shoulders that have burdened us down. Like, and what you're really saying is like, hey, there's actually hope to be able to restore something, not just go back in time, but restore the fullness of who we were designed to be. And I also hear you say, like, I know so many couples when they sit across from me, you know, especially after 15, 20, 25 years, are like, I don't know why the hell I'm in this marriage.
Right.
And yet when you get under all the messiness and you get them to start talking about the beginning, there's a sparkle, a twinkle in their eye that starts happening, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I remember when I met you and I saw you for that first time, and that smile starts to crack all of a sudden. And they're like, oh yeah, I remember how you used to make me laugh all the time. And there's this reminiscence, but it's almost like also it's met with this sense of hopelessness. And they're like, oh yeah,
we'll never get back to that.
That was back then.
Yeah. Now we're in survival.
Yeah.
Now, like, we've lost those people.
Yeah. Who they are, and we'll never get them back. But what, you know, really what you're saying is that you guys have gone on a journey of even in this being like, yeah, I saw him and I realized I could actually be that again. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah. And I think, you know, one of the things that was so profound about it to me on a personal level, and I think you've probably seen this in me, babe, since then, like, I have developed more of a vision just for our family than I've ever had before, because obviously one of the things that we do when we're scared of pain or we're lost or overwhelmed is we run after things to fill up the space so we don't have to listen to what's going on, the demons that are underneath, you know. And one of the things about watching those videos that so wrecked me was I remembered the time where both Pietze and I had this mentality that as long as we have each other, like if we could just have a home and a family and that was all we had, like that would be a dream come true, you know? And it was like this reminder of what our vision for our life was back then, you know, just this sense of like, hey, as long as we've got each other, that's all we need.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it birthed this thing in me where I just started going after even more vulnerability and even with the kids and family time and just like, no, this is our life. Like, I love this life. I want this life. I want to be in this life. I want to love my kids the way that her parents loved her and the way that my parents loved me, you know, like this, just this feeling of connectedness to my humanity in a way that it's okay to just enjoy the simple things in life. It's okay to be sad about things. It's okay to be, you know, like just a really rooted deep sense of that.
Yeah. Well, and what you're talking about, you can't feel that contentment with life if you are avoiding the pain of life. Like choosing to grieve, you also chose to be able to feel joy again and to feel vision and hope.
And to accept the things that I have no control over. And then from that acceptance, then you start to see the good and you start to, No, I mean, it's been incredible for me. And I feel like such a different person. But, you know, shortly after that, we took this vacation, as we often do. Vacations are our happy place because our kids are just happy. It's all about just us being together. So we went on vacation. And, you know, this last year or so has been really marked by everybody in our life having big, difficult things. Family members, clients having things that are like really difficult to walk through. Close friends having really difficult life situations. So it's just been everywhere, you know? So, and when you go on vacation, that doesn't really stop because you still get texts, you still get, you know, updates and stuff. And so we're on vacation, we're at a Airbnb, and I get a phone call, and it's just like another unexpected, really difficult thing with somebody, intense thing with somebody in my life. And so I come back, and Pietze's in the hot tub, kids are swimming, it's so fun, and I just start sharing this situation. And we start going off the rails. And, you know, like when you're in a fight and it's not it's not immediate escalation, but you're like, this thing's going and there's no pulling it back from the edge.
It's tipping, and it's gone.
There's
Like
no
you
way
can
to
see
get out.
we're past the point of no return.
That's not
Okay,
to
there
us.
we go.
Never.
Boxing gloves are on.
Not like last night or a couple days ago.
Never, ever.
I tell my
Us
clients,
either.
we fight all the time. Just to make
All the time. But
No, we don't fight all the time. But
well, now we have the tools to know how to work through it.
exactly.
Anyways, go ahead.
No, but things just start going off the rails. And one of the things that really sent it over the edge was I have this big trigger that I'm not allowed to have negative emotions in the relationship because I don't ever feel like they're well received, you know? So and part of that is because I don't know how to communicate them softly. And part of that is because I never communicate them until they're so big that they come out bad.
Totally.
Also known as passive aggressive if we're being humble and owning.
Owning our, yes.
So I just said that to her. I'm like, you can't make this about you. Like, this is me. This is something that's affecting me. Like, you cannot make this about you. And obviously that went over really well.
It went over
She was like,
great.
okay,
I was
yeah,
like,
sure, okay, yeah.
yeah,
I'm thinking
you're
about
right.
you.
And it was, yeah, I mean, it was like an interesting thing because for me, that situation, one of my big traumas with Jonny over the years is that because he could not sit in any kind of emotion, if I was feeling emotion or he was feeling emotion, he would go into self-protection and do what we call submarining. He would submarine into his emotions and stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And it would take him a long time. Like, I can come in and out of emotion really easily.
This is an airplane.
I'm an airplane. I can go up and down really easily. It takes him a long.
That's my airplane noise. That's not an airplane.
No.
I don't know what an airplane noise
It's
sounds
close
like.
enough. It's close enough.
Johnny's like, shut up.
Anywho, he can go down into his feelings for a long time and never come back up, you know, and sometimes that's lasted years, you know,
And that could be like
totally.
he disconnects from you to go into his emotions.
I'm not loving. I'm not soft. I'm just cold and robotic and quiet.
kind of left the building, Jonny. And so I think when that situation happened, you know, we kind of hold on sometimes to vacation to have really good connection because of the chaos of our life. It slows us down so that we can really, you know, it was at the very beginning of this vacation and I can just see him going, like spiraling down. And I think it triggered complete abandonment inside of me. And honestly, I felt so unsafe. And I knew, I mean, there was part of me that is like, I knew that like, okay, this is not my issue, but it was such a strong trigger. It was like what we call like an abandonment melange, where literally it was like I was reliving our trauma and I could not get out of it.
It's what we'd call an emotional flashback.
Yep. It was an emotional flashback. And so I think we like separated, took some time. I like calmed down. I worked through my steps and we came back together.
Well, and one of the things that's always been very present for me in my perception of not being able to have negative emotions is that if they are not received well the first time, then I get stubborn and I'm not going to be vulnerable again.
Yeah.
Like if you couldn't hear me the first time, you're not going to, I'm just done.
Like I will not share my pain with you.
But obviously having gone through pathways like 12 times, I have recognized that the goal is always to try to figure out what is going on under the surface and how can I communicate this and how can I show up and be vulnerable rather than aggressive or rather than shut down. Like, how can you show what's going on? And so I walked away and I started to process my thoughts, you know, and started to ask my heart.
Before we did that, we tried to come together again and I like got really soft towards you. And then I started processing something else about the situation. And you were like, no, No,
Oh,
you
yeah,
cannot
we did
make
have to
this
separate
about
twice.
you.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm leaving. And
That's
I
right.
left the hot tub. I think I tried to call Abby. You weren't there. I was like, dang it. Okay, fine.
It was a whole day thing.
It was like
It was a whole day
and I
thing.
want to say that because it's not like we did it and it was this perfect thing. Like
Totally.
we
No, that's
kept
right.
trying and then the triggers would erupt and we'd have to separate again. And then we kept trying and it would erupt and we had to separate again. And then finally.
Well, yeah, finally, I mean, we'd probably been fighting 5 or 6 hours at this point.
Yeah, like on and off trying to like work this out.
Finally, it's getting towards bedtime for the kids and we're trying to figure out what to do. And we like separate and we have some time to think. And I start going through the steps that are in pathways of like identifying like what's actually going on, calming myself, giving myself a time for my brain to calm down and ask myself what's behind these feelings. And all of a sudden, as often happens when you do this, I get a really random memory that pops into my head. And the memory is of this dream that I had when Pietze and I were in one of our darkest seasons. And in the dream, I wasn't with Pietze anymore. I was with this other woman. And the only like identifiable thing about her was that she was really soft and kind and compassionate. Like, I can't remember what she looks like, but I can distinctly remember her being like, it's okay. Like, I can tell that you're trying so hard. And like, you know, those kind of statements. And so we get our kids in bed and we start talking again. And I'm like, hey, can I just share this memory that I had? And I walk her through this dream. And she responded, like, I don't know how you responded that well, but it changed something.
Well, because the interesting thing is that when you were walking through, we were in the same room because at this point we had tried to work through it and then we couldn't. So we just sat there silently while we were both processing, both triggered, both processing. We didn't walk away this time because it was just like, okay, let's just sit here for a second. And I was walking through my own process. And while I was walking through my steps, I connected that I was in abandonment and I was working through stuff and I just invited God into the situation. And I was like, God, this pain for me feels so big.
Yeah.
That I know that I need to see him, but I can't. Like, I need your help. And I felt like the Holy Spirit said to me in that moment, he needs you to cover him the way that your mom covers your dad. And for me, it was like this, I could see this picture of like my mom is really covering towards my dad. Like she really covers him in love. And
describe
is really
cover.
Like if he's struggling, she's really compassionate towards him. Really kind, really like, even if he acts out of those emotions in a harmful way, like she can come back and be really soft and compassionate towards him, is what I witnessed over the years. Not always. She's human too.
Right.
But immediately it was like I had a picture of what that looked like, and I'm a visual learner. So I think I needed that reference. And so when he brings this, so I was like, okay, God, then you have to help me because I feel no softness. I feel terrified. I feel my guards up. I feel like I just don't know how to see past this pain. And so when he brought that dream up to me, it was like immediately I was like, yep, you're right. Like, because I had just felt like I just made the connection inside of myself. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I was like, I just came over to him and I think I like sat on your lap and I just looked at you and I was like, I have not seen you.
Wow.
I haven't seen you. And I am so sorry. Like, I have not been a safe place for you. And I have made things about me. I've made things about me a lot. And in this situation, I'm making it about me again and my pain. And I'm so sorry. And I was like, I can totally understand why in that dream, like that's what you need. You need compassion. You need care. You need comfort. And I think his vulnerability, because when he was telling me the dream, he started crying.
Wow.
And it was like this moment where I was like, and I mean, I think at first I was a little, but then I was like, okay, God just spoke to me about this. I just made this connection. And I was like, I can hold on to this pain and lose connection, or I can choose to put it aside for a second and just see him. And in seeing him, it made him feel way less threatening. And I think his vulnerability created that bridge, you know? And so like, I just sat there and took ownership, and we both just cried. And like, I was like, and I think I even brought up like, you haven't wanted me to care for you in this way.
Wow.
Well, yeah,
like
that's
you
the
haven't let
other
yourself
thing.
be vulnerable to me. And so part of it is like, I took ownership for like, I haven't been safe for you to do that, you know? And
I've never trusted you to care for me. I mean, I've always had a mentality that to need anything from somebody else was inherently bad.
Yeah.
You know,
And
like
that comes
I was
from your
scared.
own trauma.
That comes from my own
your own pain
childhood,
from childhood
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, being weak and saying like, I feel like I need this was a really scary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had kind of built the foundation of our relationship on the fact that I don't ever need anything from you. I only do things for you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say? Like there was
100%.
that mentality very present.
And honestly, that felt so unsafe to me. I didn't know it at the time.
Well, because then I started resenting you for needing stuff from me.
Yeah. And because it feels one-sided.
yeah.
So like if I don't affect you, if I can't affect you at all, it's not a even balanced relationship.
Yeah.
And then I feel guilty for my needs. Like I feel guilty then when I show up with needs, because I know that you're constantly outputting, but I'm not being able to affect you in the same way and pour into you.
I want to make a note on that. Actually, I had a friend whose wife had an affair on him, and then she divorced him and left him. And you know, he was talking about how he wasn't painting the picture that she was necessarily a villain, but he was sharing the story in a way that I'm like, okay, well, help me understand what your part was.
Right.
You know, and he sat and he thought about it. He said, you know, Justin, I was the needless man. And the message that I sent to my wife, I took care of everything. I took care of the kids. I took care of the bills. I took care of the having finances. You know, I literally created a world where there was nothing for her to do or invest in, not the externals, and then not in my heart. Like it wasn't like, I need you to show up for me. So he was like, she didn't have buy-in to me, number one. So it wasn't like that she'd had to sacrifice and pay a price because I didn't allow the space for that. And the message I sent to her is, you're worthless. Who you are cannot affect me. You don't.
It doesn't bring any worth.
You
to my
don't
life.
bring worth to my world.
Yes.
And so she's sitting there feeling worthless, like, oh, I don't add anything to his life, so whatever. I don't feel happy. I don't feel content. I don't feel like I've bought into anything. I don't feel like he needs me. So all of a sudden she finds herself in a fantasy with someone else.
Yeah, I think that there's a real, I know that I really soften when people say, when I can hear that I affect people, when I can hear that like, oh, you want me to be tender towards you because that actually matters and impacts you. That feels really good to me. When it feels like it doesn't matter, you're fine in whatever. And I mean, I think so much of us I spent my whole life trying to be unaffectable because I thought that's what was lovable, was to not be affectable, to be fine up and down, no problem, like no emotions. I don't need anything, low maintenance. But that actually means that people don't feel like they have something that they are contributing. I remember it connected for me years ago when I had a friend say, like, I love to give. It's how I bond. Like me getting to pour into somebody, me feeling like I have something to contribute to them, me getting to add something to someone's world is how I bond. And so I was like, that's how I feel. If I have something to give somebody, I bond through that. So if I don't give people the opportunity to give to me, to meet my needs, to see me in vulnerability, then I steal their ability to bond through their contribution.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to you and I'm like, it's so true. When we're in pain, we go into survival mode and that becomes very narcissistic. And it's every human.
It's true.
It's every single human.
Yes,
when we
100%.
have pain, all we can see is our pain. We cannot see the other person. And so you're talking about that ability to put your pain to the side for a minute and see another human. And when we talk about connection, it's that ability to see and empathize with what someone else is going through, to actually
on a human level. Not on a level of what they're doing or what they're not doing, but where you actually see who they really are as a person and the struggle that they're in, the pain that you're feeling, they're feeling.
Yeah. Well, it was like a crazy moment, and it was such a huge breakthrough moment for us, because I think it was one of the first times Jonny ever was ever vulnerable to me and let me affect him.
Yeah.
And so then,
well, and what you had been wanting from me is safety.
Yeah. Where
I could show up safely for you. But the thing is, if I don't feel safe inside of myself, if I can't show up vulnerably and have you love me, I can't provide that back for you. Like there's a mutual safety that comes through that vulnerability.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it broke something open for me where all of a sudden, like I felt so safe with you.
Oh, and me too.
Yeah. And so we ended up we took off all of our clothes and jumped in the pool. We were Airbnb, sorry to the people we stayed, just because it was funny. It was just a fun end to the night. It was 10:30 at night. And then we're like, oh.
Pietze always makes us take showers because of the chlorine in the pool.
I don't like the chemicals. It's
she
not
doesn't
good
like
for
the chemicals.
So I was like, let's go shower. So we were just showering. And in the shower, Jonny just looked at me and he's like, hey, I just want to say this to you. I just want you to know that I am all in on you and that I am never, ever going to leave you. And he just kept saying it to me. I will never.
Because I felt so safe. I was just I think that you seeing me, I was just I could see your soul and I could see that you needed to hear those words in that moment. I'm not going anywhere, no matter the ups and downs. I'm in it forever.
Yeah. And it was it just broke me. It was I needed to hear that. It was and I knew that he meant it. And it was I just could tell, I was I didn't know that I needed to hear those words over and over again. And literally we just sat on the shower floor, both of us crying.
Weeping. With the shower, the water, just pouring over our heads.
And he just kept saying, I love you. I'm never going to leave you. I love you. I'm all in on you. And I was just bawling my eyes out. And then we'd start making out because it was just the connection. All of a sudden, the safety between us just.
Yeah.
It was so, I'd never experienced something like that in my entire life. It's the safest I've ever felt in my entire life.
Oh, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden we'd be making out and so much love between us, but then we both have pain come up of just how
for a long
hard
time
it's
we were
been.
making out and weeping at the same time.
Wow.
And then drowning.
Just weeping and kissing simultaneously.
Eventually we're we got to get out of here. We're freaking flooding this whole shower. But it was the most intense intimacy I've ever felt in my entire life with another human being.
Yeah.
It was, I don't even know how to describe it. I was I've never felt this way before in my entire life.
It was the first moment in our life where I've ever actually felt the reality of that verse that talks about two becoming one. And we've been married for 15 years. Right. So, it only took a little while, but
it was letting down your walls, letting vulnerability in. And we talk about this in the course about the abundant mentality. If you will let go of needing to be seen yourself, if you will allow yourself to be in other people's shoes, if you will see them and really feel what it would be like to be them, and then be able to love them from that place, that empathy, that validation, often they will see you after that. Yes. They will meet you. They'll be able to connect to you. Yeah. They'll be able to, most people who are seen and validated can end up reciprocating that. And so the fear of our needs not getting met is typically why we hold on to what's going on inside of us. And then our ability to let go of our thing to meet someone else in their needs is a beautiful, powerful thing.
So did that end in some sweet, hot, passionate, sexy, sweaty lovemaking?
Well, it's just, I mean, we can go into the deets on the next episode, but let's just say,
everybody.
Let's just say this. It has led to progressively better and better sex
than you've ever had,
and emotional intimacy, and better results of coming back from hard fights. I mean, it has progressed steadily from that point, because we got to a point where we knew how to see each other and be safe and connected.
Yes.
I love that.
So the answer is yes. It led to like a crazy sexual experience between the two of us.
That's amazing.
Because not a crazy sexual experience, but a crazy intimacy that has opened up the entire gates on your whole sex life.
Yes.
Which I think is amazing and very true. And people out there need to know your sex life is directly connected to your emotional safety with each other.
Yes, it's a huge component.
And as you guys listen along to this and you follow up with the next episode, I know that a lot of you have probably been on the journey of trying to figure out, even in your own lives, especially if you have relationships where you're having sex, like a lot of times there's this message that good sex is adding external things. Progressively over and over again. And what it really is these internal things. And we're going to get into the impact of this internal journey and what that actually unfolds into, and that years down the road inside of marriage, you can actually have the best sex life you've ever had. And it's not because
sex revival.
Yeah, you can have a sex revival, and it's not because you just all of a sudden took a class on better positions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my new saying is safe sex is the best sex.
Safe sex. That's true.
So with that said, I really appreciate you guys sharing that, and especially that moment inside the shower. I think that I was thinking of that. I'm like, wow, that's so cool that someone shared a detailed experience like that of like, here we are, completely exposed to one another, weeping in the shower. And
there's something powerful about even like physically being naked. You're both in a vulnerable moment, and then emotionally being fully vulnerable with each other.
There's nothing between you.
There's nothing
anymore.
It's so powerful.
It's amazing.
So if you guys are listening and you know that you need a map to your emotions, you feel overwhelmed by them, or you want a healthier relationship, or you want to know how to get safe within yourself so you can be safe for others, we are running Pathways. It's going to start in September, so you need to sign up ASAP to get into that. Me and Pietze will be teaching the live immersion calls during that course so that we can be going over stuff and live consulting people through stuff as we do it. And so to me, it's the foundation. This is the foundation of what we do for our life consulting masterclass. We've had all of our consultants go through this. They do this homework over and over and over again for a year straight. They work on what we teach in Pathway to Freedom, because it is the foundation, me and Pietze think, for all emotional health.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And really a bedrock of foundation, or a foundation of change.
So you can go to Justin and Abby. That's abi.com. You can click on courses, the pathway to freedom, and you can jump in there if you want to partake in that. And
the best thing that you can do if you want to support us is share this with people. We want to see good marriages. We want to see people inspired to fall back in love. We want to see people actually learn to do that vulnerability. We want to see single people have hope for what marriage can be and doing this stuff. So share this with people. We try to create as much free content as we can to send out into the world to impact people. And it gets into people's hands by you guys doing it, sharing it to people. So
yeah.
Well, with that said, thank you guys for sharing. Can't wait to hear details of your sexual sexual activities.
Getting down with the dirty deeds.
It's not going to be dirty.
No, it's not. It's going to be beautiful lovemaking.
It's going to be the healthiest view. It's going to be healthy.
Notebook. Oh, gee whiz. All right. Hey, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Adios.
Hey, Abby, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye.
There we go.